The Latin American novel rescues what official history neglects. That is how Carlos Fuentes summed up the power of literature. For him, novels are more than stories, they are lifeboats, ferrying the submerged truths that governments and dominant narratives want to erase or forget. Mexican author Carlos Fuentes arrived with a new way of seeing Mexico, one that treated fiction as a lens on power, memory, and identity. In his work, personal lives and national stories intertwine, and novels become instruments for understanding how institutions actually operate. For instance, La Muerte de Artemio Cruz is a masterclass in this method. Its protagonist, a revolutionary soldier who becomes a very wealthy and powerful man, dies in stages of memory, each fragment revealing the compromise and bargains that sustain political life. Fuentes does not merely recount events, he exposes the moral architecture behind them. Ambition, cowardice, and the private decisions that build public regimes. Fuentes argued that the Latin American novel rescues what official history neglects. Rather than compiling a chronology, he mapped the informal routines, small calculations, and generational betrayals that make governance legible. His fiction discloses how power circulates through families, saloons, and backrooms, how a nation's official story coexists with a subterranean narrative of compromise. His panoramic vantage was forged early. Born in 1928 to a diplomatic family, Fuentes spent childhood years in Montevideo and Rio de Janeiro, later living in Washington during the tense aftermath of Mexico's 1938 oil nationalization. Exposure to multiple cultures and languages gave him an outward gaze and an inward interrogative stance toward Mexico's identity. He even traced his family histories shaped by European convulsions, ancestors who fled Germany and Spain and settled in Veracruz, demonstrating how personal identity is layered with political events. A formative moment came after watching Citizen Kane at age 10. He recognized narrative's power to tie intimate lives to public histories and set out to make that linkage his literary project. He studied law at UNAM, borrowing legal clarity to craft prose that could both organize and rupture form. His early books, Los Días Enmascarados, published in 1954, mixed myth and modernity. And then, his most important novel, La Región más Transparente, published in 1958, reshaped representations of Mexico City, bringing together mythic pasts, modern ambitions, and the social contradictions of a rapidly urbanizing capital. The success of La Región más Transparente put Fuentes at the center of Mexican cultural life, and it also made him closer to those in power. This exposed the uneasy boundary between cultural influence and political power. These decisions exemplify a recurring Fuentes theme: proximity to power does not preclude critique. Across more than 70 books, Fuentes pursued a set of core investigations. He explored the mestizo foundations of Mexican identity, he examined how institutions ossify under patronage, and he interrogated the fragility of state narratives that smooth over contradictions. His artistry lies in translating these structural dynamics into human terms. Betrayal becomes a family habit, corruption reads like inheritance, and revolution is choreography of repeated promises. And if you want to take a closer look at his approach, here are 5 essential works. First of all, and obviously, La Región más Transparente. This is an urban panorama of Mexico City that juxtaposes myth and modern life, revealing how class, culture, and obviously aspiration collide in the capital. The second novel is La Silla del Águila. This is a near-future epistolary novel about a corrupt election and external intervention, a study in institutional decay and informal power. The third book is Tiempo, Mexicano, published in 1971. This is an essay that delves into temporal layering, how historical periods coexist and shape national memory. Here, Fuentes places faith in generational change. The fourth book is Nuevo, Tiempo, Mexicano, that was published in 1994. It was written after the Zapatista uprising and the peso crisis, and it is a sober reflection on the limits of reform in an era transformed by NAFTA. And the last book, and this is my personal favorite, El Espejo, Enterrado, published in 1992. This is a sweeping cultural history tracing 5 centuries of Hispanic America, arguing that colonial and indigenous legacies remain the continent's defining currents. Fuentes' diagnosis of modern Mexico was structural and cultural. He traced how the post-revolutionary bourgeoisie often replicated old hierarchies, how the pre-institutionalized political life by fusing party and state, and how industrial growth could actually coexist with entrenched inequality. Yet, his primary claim was cultural. For Fuentes, the revolution's most durable achievement was knitting a disparate populace together, creating shared symbols and narratives that enable mutual recognition. What makes Carlos Fuentes essential is his method, fiction as an analytic tool. He uses narrative to reveal casualties that statics and manifestos obscure, the slow accumulation of small choices that become a national policy. His novels train readers to perceive power's informal logics, who benefits from silence, how alliances form, and why public narratives mask private economies. From my point of view, reading Fuentes today is an act of civic intelligence. His book teaches patience and interpretative skills. Political realities often emerge from habits, moods, and everyday transactions, not only from spectacular events. They prepare readers to read institutions like texts, attentive to subtext, irony, and omission. So if you want to grasp Mexico beyond headlines, begin with Fuentes. Open a novel, an essay, or The Buried Mirror. Let his voice guide you through the architectures of power and memory. The reward isn't an answer, it's actually a sharper question, and the capacity to look at Mexico with a keener, more imaginative intelligence. And if you liked this video, remember to subscribe. And if you want us to explore another Mexican author, please tell us in the comments.